Hey, and welcome. If you are watching this video, you're probably a subscriber to our newsletter about how real estate agents can use AI in their businesses. And if you are not a subscriber and you happen to just stumble across this video, I'll drop a link down below about how you can subscribe as well. So in this video, we're going to go over basically just the little basics that you need to understand in order to take advantage of what we're going to be sending you. Each week, we're going to be sending you not just little updates about what's going on in the AI world, but also the most important one are different prompts that you can use in order to communicate with your AI better, and so that you can actually use it in your real estate business to become more effective and more efficient. And so we'll break down essentially how to get started. We'll talk about different accounts that you need to set up. You just need one, and we'll show you which ones to set up. And then also the basics of what we call prompt engineering, which is how we talk to computers, and then your next steps. And I'll even break down your first prompt that comes in the first email. I'll break down that first prompt for you and how you can see kind of real time how it works. So first, something to understand is that this is really simple. It's not designed by nature to be a complicated system. It's just us talking to a computer, and you can't break it. There's no way for you to go in there and mess something up. And in fact, you can even go as far as talking to the AI or typing to the AI and asking it, how do I use this system? And it'll even reply back to you. You can have a little conversation with it like your own personal tutor. But we're here for you. We're going to show you how you can actually use it more effectively in your business. So let's get started. All right. So the first thing that you're going to need is one of these AI models to talk to. These are called language learning models. It's basically meaning that we're going to use plain language to talk to them. They're going to learn what it is that we are looking to achieve, and then they will spit back some results for us. So the most popular version probably is ChatGPT. It's the one that we kind of hear about the most. You can get both a paid account or a free account. The free account is going to do about 90% of what most real estate agents are going to need to do throughout their business. Especially in the context of this newsletter, we'll be using ChatGPT 3.5, which is the free version. So don't feel like you need to go out and pay for anything, especially if you're just getting started. Every now and then we might use an example that's coming out of ChatGPT 4 or later, which are usually the paid models. And we will denote when we're doing that. But for the most part, that's just for us to kind of demonstrate, hey, this is something that you could be aware of. Maybe you need it in your business, maybe you don't, but at least then you know it's out there and exists. The other really popular one right now is Google Bard. As long as you have a Google account, most Google accounts, you'll be able to access that one for completely free. However, there are some accounts, like if you're using one from work that has like an @customdomain.com kind of email, those your workplace administrator would have to turn that on for you if it's not turned on by default, so it may not work. But if you just are using your Google account through like an @gmail.com email address, then you should already have access. It'll a little bit depend on your country or a couple different settings, but you probably have access to it. Like I said, for the most part, we're going to be using ChatGPT 3.5 as our examples, but I'll often switch back between the two of them to see, because I'll get different results. When I say that we're going to talk to computers, we're going to do that through a thing that we call prompt engineering. So prompt engineering, think of it as really just how to talk to computers. In the past, in order for a human to interface with a computer and get it to do the things it wanted it to do, they would have to use different programming languages like HTML to design websites or JavaScript to design web applications. And now, through the power of AI and machine learning, we're actually able to just use plain English and type in what it is that we're looking for. Sometimes you could even speak it in, depending on what system you're using. But we just simply ask it a question, give it a little bit of context, and it spits back results for us. And then we can interact back and forth through just plain English in order to communicate what it is that we're specifically looking for. Now, you could literally jump in right now and just start asking it questions, and you could probably get somewhere. But through prompt engineering, we can actually be a little bit more effective and efficient. And this is where we'll teach you a specific method of how you can a little bit better communicate with the computer in order to get more accurate results. Sometimes you can get some pretty funny results, and prompt engineering will help us get exactly what we're looking for. So within prompt engineering, there's a lot of different ways to tackle this. There's plenty of examples out there on the internet, but we're going to use this one where we're going to use a context, a task, and sometimes we'll use what we call an exemplar, which is really just an example. Now think of the task in the context as absolutely mandatory, and then the exemplar one is one that we kind of add in for extra flavor. All right, so let's start with context. That's where we're going to clearly define the scenario or the problem that we're looking to address using the AI. Now, I will generally start them with saying that I'm a real estate agent. I'm giving it that little bit of context, and here's what I'm looking to do. It's really no different than if you were working with kind of like a new assistant and you say, okay, this is my business. This is what I need to achieve. How can you help me achieve it? Then the task is where we're actually saying, I've given you the context of what I'm looking to do, and here is the output that I'm looking to receive. When creating different task statements, we often use action verbs like write me this, output this, create this. We're giving it a very specific term to say, what is it that I'm looking for on the other end of our communication? Now think of a task as the absolute mandatory. There's basically no way around it because you're asking for it to do something for us. But without context, the task it might create is just, or the result it creates might just be wildly out of line of what you're actually looking for. So really think of task as, yes, absolutely mandatory, and we might as well start thinking of it, the context is also mandatory. Now, sometimes we'll also add in what we call the exemplar or an example, which is where I might say, hey, here's a little bit more context of, here's an example of how this has worked before. I'm looking for something similar to this. So let's dive into a real world example. This is actually the first example that comes in the first email issue that we send out to you when you subscribe. And you can literally copy and paste this into whichever model that you chose to go with. And right after this slide, I'll show you an example of what the output from ChatGPT actually looks like when we ask it this exact question. So I am terrible at writing listing descriptions on properties. I see a lot of people that are terrible at writing listing descriptions on properties, but every now and then you come across one where you can tell they're really selling to the potential buyer that this is what it's like to live at this home. Similar to when we use staging in homes, we want to drive emotion. When we write really detailed and creative listing descriptions, we can help start to drive that emotion of, ooh, this is why I need to go see this house, before they ever even get off the internet while they're still looking at it on their phone. So I'm going to start with the context of saying I'm a real estate agent writing a listing description for a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home. The house is in a neighborhood with several parks and walking distance to the beach, but no ocean view. Just a side note, I give it a little extra context because I didn't want it to say there's an ocean view. It's a great commute location because of the easy access to the highway. So I'm giving it just enough context to say this is what I'm looking for. You might be surprised at the level of result that I get back on the next slide. Then the task is generate an engaging property description that highlights the home's charms, feature, and neighborhood appeal. So let's see what I actually get back once I've given it both the task and the context. Now I could take it one step further, giving it an example of here's another really well written one that I like. If I drop that exemplar in there, then it might come back with exactly what I'm looking for, but let's see what happens. So even without zooming in, you can see that this is way too long of a listing description. I don't know how many words that is, but it was way too many. It's difficult to tell ChatGPT for whatever reason that I want a very specific word count. And so instead, I'm not even going to read all that because I know it's way too long. I just ask it using plain English, make it a little shorter. I'm not specifying how short. I'm not saying super short, just a little shorter. And this is honestly maybe now too short, but it's a lot closer of what I'm looking for, where it starts to talk about the charming 3-bedroom home. It says the beautiful beach is just a stroll away, not walking distance. It's a stroll away. There is a welcoming, light-filled living area and with a cozy fireplace. Now, this is one area where people can start to get in trouble, is if I just copied and pasted this over and I didn't double check that I actually have a light-filled living area with a cozy fireplace, obviously that's just room for disaster. Luckily, this house happens to have it, so we're good with it. But it's a good example of saying that this will get us so far, then we need some human editing to make sure we're getting exactly what we need. The kitchen is a chef's dream with granite countertops, yada, yada. And you can see that it basically created me something that I'm much happier with this than what I would have come up with, which is basically this example here. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house with several beaches, several parks and a beach, right? It came up with an example that is much more engaging. Anyway, so go give it a try. This is everything you need to get started. So give it a try. Let us know how it goes. I'm very interested in seeing the results you get. So feel free, just reply to the email, or you can drop comments and questions down below. I'd love to see the examples that you're creating. And also, if you're running into problems, obviously feel free to let us know and we'll get right back to you.